Alpha 5 is one of the most recognizable robotic characters in Power Rangers, but his history becomes confusing unless the continuities are separated. The original television saga begins with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in 1993 and continues through Zeo, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, Power Rangers Turbo, and later anniversary stories. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie from 1995, uses many of the same actors, but it tells an alternate version of how the Rangers lost their old powers and gained new ones. The 2017 theatrical reboot starts again in another universe with redesigned heroes, villains, Zordon, and Alpha. This spotlight follows all three paths without pretending that they form one uninterrupted biography. It also follows Alpha 5's television successors because Alpha 6, Alpha 7, Alpha 8, and Alpha 9 turn one beloved assistant into an entire synthetic lineage. In the main television continuity, Alpha 5 lives in the command center with Zordon and assists the Mighty Morphin Rangers from their first mission. He monitors battles, operates the viewing globe, maintains equipment, analyzes threats, teleports the team, and frequently helps repair technology that the Rangers depend on. Yet his role is not limited to being a computer terminal with legs. Alpha worries when the Rangers are endangered, celebrates their victories, becomes lonely, makes mistakes, and sometimes wants to participate more directly. The series describes him as a fully self-aware artificial intelligence, and the Rangers generally treat him as a teammate and friend rather than a disposable appliance. His famous cry of "ah yee 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 yee" can be comic, but it also makes his fear and concern immediately recognizable. He becomes the emotional voice of the command center whenever Zordon remains calm and distant. Power Rangers was not adapted from a novel or comic book. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was created by combining newly filmed American character scenes with action footage and designs from Japan's Super Sentai television franchise. The first season drew heavily from Kyoryu Sentai's Zyuranger, while later Mighty Morphin seasons used material from Dairanger and Kakuranger. Alpha 5 belongs mainly to the American-produced side of that hybrid. He appears in the command center scenes, communicates with the American Rangers, and supports stories that were rewritten for the new series. An earlier Saban attempt to adapt Chodenshi Bioman also included an Alpha 5 concept inspired by the Japanese robot Peebo, showing that the idea developed before Mighty Morphin finally reached television. Alpha therefore represents the international history of Power Rangers, Japanese superhero traditions transformed through new American characters, voices, sets, and continuity. Alpha 5 was created by both voice performance and physical suit acting. Richard Steven Horvitz, often credited early in the franchise as Richard Wood, supplied the high-pitched voice and made the anxious catchphrase central to the character. Inside the television costume, Romy J., Sharf, Sandy Selner, and Deneen Kistler performed Alpha at different stages of the original run. Their movements had to communicate personality through a helmet with no conventional human face. The 1995 theatrical film used Petamarie Rickson as the suit performer, while Horvitz continued the voice. This separation matters because Alpha's performance was collaborative, posture, hand gestures, timing, editing, and voice all combined to create the illusion of one continuing person. The television and movie costumes also had practical limitations. The performers had restricted vision and movement, yet they still made Alpha feel nervous, affectionate, energetic, and occasionally brave. Alpha's comedy can make it easy to underestimate him. He panics, waves his arms, gets flustered, and sometimes creates problems while trying to solve them. But those weaknesses are part of why he feels like a character instead of flawless equipment. Alpha can be frightened and still continue helping. He can be manipulated or damaged without becoming morally identical to an evil machine. In stories where he is controlled, the Rangers react as though a friend has been violated, not as though a defective toaster should be replaced. He also shows creativity, curiosity, and a desire to belong with the teenagers. The franchise rarely gives a formal philosophical explanation of his consciousness. Instead, viewers receive the same kind of evidence they receive from other characters: memory, relationships, emotional reactions, consistent preferences, and choices under pressure. Alpha's personhood is communicated through sustained behavior rather than a single speech. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie was released in 1995, but it does not sit inside the television timeline. The film presents its own version of the Rangers losing their powers, meeting Dulcia, traveling to Phaedos, and receiving ninja powers. The television series later tells a different story through the Ninja Quest episodes. Alpha 5 in the movie is therefore an alternate version of the familiar character, even though Steven Horvitz again provides the voice and the cast mostly matches the television team. Peta Marie Rixson performed inside a specially designed Alpha suit with a more elaborate metallic finish. Prop makers later described the movie costume as vacuum metallized gold with red paint, while a related television version was produced with different finishing choices. The movie gives Alpha a larger cinematic setting, but his basic relationship with Zordon and the Rangers remains recognizable. After the separate 1995 movie, the main television Alpha continued into Power Rangers Zeo. He adapted to the new Power Chamber, new Ranger powers, and the Machine Empire without losing the personality established in Mighty Morphin. The next theatrical production, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, is different from the 1995 film because Turbo functions as a bridge inside the television continuity. It introduces the Turbo powers and Divatox before the Power Rangers Turbo series begins. Alpha 5 receives a shinier, streamlined body for this era, but he is still the television character traveling forward with Zordon. Early in the Turbo series, Zordon and Alpha leave Earth for Eltar, ending Alpha 5's regular television role. The departure treats him as someone saying goodbye to a family he helped build, not merely as old hardware being exchanged for a newer model. Alpha 6 succeeds Alpha 5, but the series does not present him as a simple costume upgrade. He has a different personality, a different speaking style, and a different relationship with the Rangers. His earliest attitude is cockier and more abrasive, which immediately tells the audience that a shared Alpha design does not erase individuality. Alpha 6 assists the Turbo Rangers under Demetria and later joins the Rangers in space, helping them aboard the Astro Megaship. Over time, he becomes more dependable and familiar. This is one of the franchise's clearest examples of synthetic succession. Alpha 6 inherits a role, but not Alpha 5's exact identity. The continuity gives both units room to matter. Alpha 5's history remains his own, while Alpha 6 develops a separate record of friendships, failures, repairs, and growth. Power Rangers Operation Overdrive celebrated the franchise's 15th anniversary with the two-part crossover, Once a Ranger. When the current team's connection to the morphing grid is damaged, veteran Rangers return to help. Adam Park, the second Mighty Morphin Black Ranger, is part of that team, and the story brings back Alpha 6 as the being capable of repairing the grid. Alpha 6 is found, repaired, and reactivated, linking a later Disney-era season to the older Zordon era. The reunion is especially effective because Adam and Alpha represent two different forms of continuity. Adam has changed from a shy teenager into an experienced veteran. Alpha 6 is a synthetic person who can be inactive, repaired, and return to service while still carrying recognizable identity and history. Their scenes show that an anniversary crossover can restore more than costumes, it can restore relationships. Alpha 7 appears in Forever Red, the Power Rangers Wild Force anniversary episode that gathers Red Rangers from multiple teams. His role is smaller than Alpha 5's or Alpha 6's, but his presence expands the idea that the Alpha units continue beyond one command center. Alpha 7 helps the veteran Rangers prepare for a mission involving surviving forces of the Machine Empire and Serpentera. The episode is famous for bringing together different generations of Red Rangers, and Alpha 7 functions as part of the connective infrastructure that makes the reunion possible. Because he appears briefly, viewers receive less information about his private personality. That absence is important. A number and a familiar body shape do not automatically tell us whether he shares memories, programming, or preferences with earlier Alphas. Alpha 7 is best understood as a distinct successor whose limited screen time leaves many identity questions open. The 2017 Power Rangers movie starts a completely separate reboot timeline. Its Alpha 5 is not the television Alpha after another upgrade. He is a new version voiced by Bill Hader and designed as a fully computer-generated biomechanical being. This Alpha has a more alien silhouette, external eye structures, and a visible internal energy system. His personality is also less immediately welcoming. He doubts whether the new teenagers are capable of becoming Rangers and often argues with Zordon about them. The skepticism gives him a different relationship with the team, but he still becomes an important guide inside the alien ship. The redesign divided fans because it abandoned the round, friendly television costume. Yet it also allowed the filmmakers to ask what Alpha might look like if he were ancient extraterrestrial technology rather than a person-sized practical robot built for a 1990s television set. Image Engine created more than 300 visual effects shots for the 2017 film, with Alpha 5 forming a major part of its work. The studio first won the assignment through a test animation process designed to establish Alpha's personality. On set, a performer in a green suit gave the actors a physical position and eyeline. Bill Hader later performed motion capture, and the animators used his movement as reference, sometimes preserving captured motion, sometimes recording additional actions, and sometimes animating shots by hand. Alpha's internal brain and nervous system were imagined as moving fiber optic energy created with Houdini effects. Even the small swirling eyes were used to communicate mood. The artist found that details such as blinking made the metal face feel more emotionally alive. This is a useful reminder that a digital character is still a performance assembled from acting, animation, design, lighting, effects, and editorial choices. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers once and always returned to the main television continuity in 2023 and made the Alpha lineage central to the plot. Billy Cranston had built Alpha 8 while trying to locate the energy of Zordon's Z-Wave. Instead, the experiment released the evil essence that had been purged from Rita Repulsa. That evil possessed Alpha 8's body, reshaping it into Robo-Rita and destroying the original Alpha 8 identity. Billy later works with Alpha 9, the next unit, who helps operate the rebuilt command center, monitors the worldwide crisis, and supports the returning Rangers. Richard Steven Horvitz voices both Alpha 8 and Alpha 9, creating an intentional connection to Alpha 5 without claiming they are literally the same person. The special turns replacement into tragedy and recovery. One Alpha is overwritten, another continues the work, and the voice of the original era returns through new individuals. The Alpha idea also expands through comics, games, and alternate continuities. Boom! Studios introduced Alpha 1, a predecessor whose willingness to use ruthless methods contrasts with Alpha 5's loyalty and restraint. Comic stories can explore choices that a weekly children's television series only hinted at, including the possibility that two Alpha units built for similar purposes can develop sharply different moral identities. Other media reuse familiar designs, voices, or roles without always belonging to the television timeline. That makes careful labeling essential. A comic Alpha, a movie Alpha, and a television Alpha may resemble one another while having different histories. Power Rangers itself has repeatedly rebooted, adapted, and reinterpreted its mythology, so the Alpha lineage becomes a compact way to understand the whole franchise. Shared symbols do not guarantee shared continuity. Alpha 5 began as the anxious robot beside Zordon, but the character's legacy now covers multiple performers, two separate theatrical universes, the long television continuity, anniversary crossovers, digital visual effects, and an entire sequence of successor units. The Alphas are useful because they are never only technology. They can be loyal, irritating, courageous, frightened, controlled, destroyed, repaired, or replaced. The franchise does not always explain how much information passes from one unit to another, and that uncertainty creates the final question. When Alpha 6, Alpha 7, Alpha 8, or Alpha 9 carries forward the same role, familiar voice, and connection to the Rangers, what makes each one an individual? Is continuity located in the body, the memories, the relationships, the choices, or some combination of all four? Which Alpha version is your favorite, and do you consider the later units successors, relatives, or continuations of Alpha 5?